What's up, fam? Elijah Chat here. Welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE. And this week, Jamie, Andrea, Laith, Leah, Paulo, Valentina, Hunter, and Kenny are my extras, and I am the ordinary. Family, coming into recording this video, it has been absolutely incredible seeing how the prophetic declarations of the past are coinciding with events, times, and celebrations within the present era of 2024. The video that went live on Sunday, March 31st, 2024, here in the present was Wash Out Your Crack Part 2, connected to a video 3.5 years ago in the past, which was focused on understanding. As I was coming into today, recording this video and the conclusion of what God was doing, meditating on how Jesus fulfilled the principles in both of those videos in his coming, his death, his burial, and resurrection, absolutely mind-blowing. As I was meditating on those things, that also within my social media feed, it popped up all of the stuff surrounding President Biden's proclamation of recognizing the Transgender Day of Visibility to be on March 31st. Now, lots of people have been upset about that he would make that declaration and establish it on Easter this year. As I went back, I think it's so critical, again, focus on understanding, to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to be angry. As I saw that and I began to research it, I found that the Transgender Day of Visibility was established first in 2009. The last time that Easter landed on March 31st was back in 2013. And so Transgender Day of Visibility already coincided with Easter 11 years ago and has now then coincided again here in 2024 on March 31st, which is 11 years since the last time it coincided. Doing more research, again, March 31st will not house Easter celebration again for another 62 years. And so the beauty of seeing how these videos and declarations of God have coincided here on March 31st, 2024, in conjunction with a declaration by the President of the United States establishing March 31st as a recognized U.S. holiday on March 31st of Transgender Day of Visibility, is nothing short of incalculably beautiful. In John 11, that it talks about how Caiaphas, during Jesus, as he was coming into his crucifixion, that he spoke and said that it was better that one man die than the entire Jewish nation die. That then it says, he didn't speak this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied about the death of Jesus for the Jewish nation. And that from that time on, the religious leaders then plotted to kill Jesus. Now, I agree with that. And I honor our president in that he has not spoke on his own. That in establishing today, Sunday, March 31st, 2024, by presidential proclamation as being Transgender Day of Visibility, that from this point on, the church will no longer view transgenderism the same way ever again. Back in 2012, so 12 years ago from now, I was going through a very difficult season with the Lord in him teaching me about homosexuality and transgenderism. That Ezekiel 3:10 passage that I quote in clean out, wash out your crack part deuce. Son of man, let all of my words sink deep into your own heart first. You listen to them carefully for yourself. Then go to your people in exile and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord has said. Do this whether they listen to you or not. Friends, I was in that space that back in college, I had a very close friend who told me that they were gay. And I reacted to them horribly. That in 2012, then God brought those things back to my remembrance and was bringing such godly sorrow and conviction and repentance to my heart in how I had reacted to their confession of vulnerability to me. I went to God and said, God, you have to give me revelation, insight, understanding on these issues. I never want to react out of fear and insecurity again, but to only respond in faith, compassion, love, hope, and gentleness by your Spirit moving from this place forward. Can you please tell me about these things? Now, as he began to reveal these things to me, I just wanted him to tell me the truths that I could apply apologetically towards other people. But instead, he began to address deep things in me. Son of man, let all my words sink deep into your heart first. There is a taproot growing in the dirt of the cracks of your life that has to be pulled first, and then all of that dirt washed from your life, lest the weeds of sin have access to grow up in your life again. Son, this is about you and me, not about anyone else. It was so incredibly revolutionary to my life. It peeled back layers and layers of false thinking and brokenness in my own life as God washed all of the things clean in my own life. And it brought such, again, godly sorrow, conviction, and repentance in my life as I turned to God as one receiving his grace, love, and mercy. And now, here in the last 12 years, have been very quick to listen, both to God and to others and their experiences, to learn, to be slow to speak and very slow to become angry. I think it was so beautiful to me in that God shut the revelation up in my life so that it started growing and growing and growing in pressure as it was having its good work in me, rather than speaking it to the entire world and the church at that time. It was so revolutionary. It opened my eyes so incredibly to truth that I wanted to release it to the entire Christian world. But in that time and season, I was in so much pain as a result of hurts that I received at the hands of the church that it would not have been from a place of love and tenderness, and it would not have had its good and fullest work in my life to demonstrate the beauty of God's ways in overcoming sin in my life. So coming into March 31st, so beautiful seeing Wash Out Your Crack Part Deuce, focus on understanding and Jesus, how he accomplished those things and planted them in me, merged with this declaration on transgenderism, and that my faith family is in the middle of a 8-week series on James. In my video, I said that I was re-upping my memory of the entire book at that time and was contemplating the elements of James, and that here we are in the coinciding of all of those points at one point in time. It's so beautiful then to see how Jesus lived these things out with us, that he came, he lived among us, that he died, he was buried and was resurrected, that his death represented the fullness of his humanity, that he could be killed, but then that he rose back to life, representing his Godhead, and that changes everything. But that now we have a high priest who is not unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but is one that was tempted in every way as we are, and yet was without sin. Therefore, it gives us confidence to know that he understands, so that we can have boldness walking into the throne room of heaven in our time of need to receive mercy and grace. Then we walk into the throne room, that we find this high priest interceding for us always, making intercession for us before the Father. And as we walk into his presence, he has this knowing look of understanding, of yes, I understand. That slight nod of shared empathy of you're known, I understand, you are safe, and yes, I want to give you mercy and grace in the midst of your temptation and trial. Now, something I've learned in meditating again on James 1:19, My brothers, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. But then if you pair those first two elements, quick to listen, slow to speak, the overarching principle is be very slow to speak. 12 years, fam, of sitting with this word, listening to the Father, waiting for the appointed time. And that Isaiah 50 verse 4, one of my favorite verses, says, the sovereign Lord has given me a well-instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen like one being instructed. And so this context of Ezekiel chapter 3, of going and saying, this is what the sovereign Lord says, that the sovereign Lord gives me an instructed tongue to speak on his behalf, by awakening morning after morning after morning after morning with my ear trained to listen to what he is saying. And so being quick to listen and slow to speak for a 12-year period, the time has come. Now, for those of you who are listening, I don't have a word for those who are in the world except to express my gratitude and my appreciation for the prophetic voice of your life that has served to confront my life, to be able to hear the Father more, to know him more, and to walk in his ways. Only appreciation. This word is for those who are confessing Christians that say that they participate in my family of faith. The spirit of transgenderism has been far more prevalent amongst those who are professing Christians than it has been in the world. And its increased prevalence within the religious has been the place where it has been incubated and grown such that then it has been hatched into the world in the current explosion of its physical expression that we've seen over this past era. Men and women who transition into a transgender state, they often express that they have this sense of a dissonance within their person from the identity that they were born into and then what they feel on the inside should be their expressed or presented identity to the world. That it becomes so dissonant, that it becomes so uncomfortable within them, that eventually it becomes more uncomfortable for them to remain in that state than to press into transitioning and to take everyone who knew them for their whole life and to express their person in a context of male to female or female to male, and undergo the process of taking the form that they were born in and to deform it to be conformed to an identity that best represents what they feel like their identity should look like on the outside. As you look at some of the transgender models that are known throughout the world and the results of their process of shaping, crafting, and forming the representation of their physical features in the world, it is almost imperceptible to be able to discern and differentiate the identity that they were born in. That the results are incredible. That as I've learned about this process, that people who transition, they undergo extensive physical surgeries in their bodies, that they also have implants, either in breast implants or hair implants, that they undergo massive hormone therapy, that the expression of their person most perfectly correlates to their desired self-expression of what they feel best represents who they are inside. Now, while the visible external representation and behaviors can be so perfectly aligned to what they've transitioned to that you wouldn't be even able to tell, this one thing remains. No matter how well they've transitioned, transgender men are not able to authorize life in women, and neither are, as a transitioned woman, able to receive the authorability of a man in order to be impregnated, to birth a child. No matter what they look, sound, or act like, the biological markers of their identity that they were born in, man or woman, still remain. Now, how this applies to Christians is that transition is not the same as transformation. Lots of religious leaders today tout statistics on the fact that church attendance and participation is declining. And not only so, that there's numerous studies that show that the faith and the expression of faith in consistent morality is in the decline, especially within the United States. That people report that in an information age where the relativism of the world is accelerated beyond anything that they control, that you can research anything and find 2 million results on both sides of the argument in half a second, that people are becoming so destabilized in the resting place of their faith, as the eloquent word and wise words of men are no longer the basis of being able to keep them in a place of strength in their religious practice. As things get wilder and wilder, and then superstar leaders that have moral failures, and people are disillusioned and hurt and fault out of their religious circles, that people who have transitioned into an identity of Christian that best represents in their external representation what they feel like they should be on the inside is no longer insufficient to empower them to receive or impart the life of Christ. Their lives aren't producing spiritual fruit, nor do they have capacity or desire to want to impart life to others in evangelism or discipleship making. So many Christians that you talk to say that at one point in their life that they felt trapped in their identity, and that their lifestyle and what they were doing and how they were living was no longer in congruence with how they were beginning to feel on the inside. As they reflected on their lives in a mirror, they realized that what they saw day in and day out was beginning to disgust themselves, that they couldn't stand what they were seeing as they reflected upon their own lives, to finally to the point that they said, I don't care what it takes. I feel like I was born to be a different identity. I don't care what all of the people in my life say about me up to this point. I don't care what it takes. I don't care how I have to change my life in order to get this dissonance out of my life and stop being disgusted with what I see as I reflect upon myself. I'm taking the leap and I'm transitioning into a lifestyle that better represents the identity that I feel like I should be living. So they change their lifestyle choices. They change how they talk. They go to battle then with their community in demanding that people who knew them in the past refer to them in their preferred pronoun of Christian. Now, the best of the best then, who have the most time, they have the most resources to gather the professionals around them to help shape and craft their lives to best represent the life of Christ, that their lives so perfectly match the image that's represented of Jesus in Scripture in their lives, such that there is hardly any ability for people to discern a difference between their life that is a transition into a lifestyle of Christianity and the real deal of Jesus in Scripture. Not only so, but they become the mouthpieces of championing the movement of Christianity, that they're the heroes of faith who are taking the largest risks, and that people flock around them and say, oh, I'm so encouraged by your life, and that they pat the people on the head and say, keep going. Like, I know that you're in the trenches of the world and I've made it so much further than you, and I'm a supermodel on the main stage of Christianity, but I'm so glad that I inspire you and I can help you know how to be the best of the best. Just keep going. And I'm so proud of you for your courage of standing up against all of the persecution, for you stepping out and transitioning into who you feel like you should be on the inside. Fam, no matter how much a caterpillar feels like its internal expression of identity was meant to be something different on the outside, it doesn't matter how many surgeries it undergoes and Kevlar wings that it straps to its body, it's never going to be able to fly. Transition is not the same as transformation. This is why I said that the spirit of transgenderism has been far more prevalent within the religious world long before it ever found its expression hatched out into the physical expression and the explosion that we have seen it in current mainstream culture. This is also why I celebrate the proclamation of President Biden to declare that Sunday, March 31st, 2024 is Transgender Day of Visibility. Jesus has shown in his resurrection that the way to reformation is through death, burial, and resurrection, and that as we step into his life, that behold, all things have become new. The old is gone and the new has come. Transformation is of identity and transition is of behavior. Identity precedes behavior. And as the caterpillar is transformed through the metamorphosis of becoming a butterfly, the intrinsic expression of its transformed identity and nature will be expressed in its behaviors, in its representation as a result of its transformation in identity. Gravity no longer has a pull on the caterpillar. That it has the ability, is empowered to break the bonds of the gravity of Earth and to lift into and transition into the environment of soaring in the heavens. Butterflies explode into the air and intrinsically know how to fly as a result of the metamorphosis process. It's because their identity has been transformed, and therefore the behaviors and the presentation of themselves in the earth transitions with them, not vice versa. There are so many religious people that have transitioned into a Christian lifestyle so that the pressure of the identity that they feel like should be represented on the inside is on the outside, that have no more power to express the life of Christ than a transgender woman has to be impregnated and bear a baby, or a transgender man has the ability to author life in a woman. These transitioned Christians, they fight for their position of the world, that they fight on the people using the proper pronouns towards them and not for themselves. And then they get offended when the world disrespects them by trying to share Easter with Transgender Day of Visibility, when in actuality it turns out that they share more in common in transitioning than they do in differences. All this amounts to is people in varying spectrums of transition of identity throwing a tantrum over having to share their day of celebration with someone else. I mean, the audacity of some people's kids. Fam, it's Romans chapter 1. Paul says, although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. These people in transitioned religious expression, they throw fits, right? They're representatives to try and coalesce political power. They have strongly worded social media posts. Meanwhile, the sons and daughters of heaven continue to bear spiritual fruit in covenant marriage as men and women, bearing the fruit of children, and as ambassadors of heaven, speaking the very words of God, be reconciled to God unaffected. If you're living in a form of godliness that lacks power, and you're upset and frustrated when people don't jump on board with you to celebrate the visibility of your life and the things that you hold dear to you, my encouragement to you, the word that I would bring to your life is that you have more than likely transitioned into an expression of a chosen pronoun of Christian that best represents the identity that you feel on the inside should be expressed on the outside, that helps you get out of the identity that you were born in sin as, that doesn't reflect who you truly are supposed to be. President Biden did not speak on his own. Today is Transgender Day of Visibility. And from this time on, the church will never see transgenderism the same way again. judgment begins in the house of the Lord. And as we, those who profess the name of Christ, receive grace and mercy in our lives to be transformed into new creations, we will have grace upon grace and mercy upon mercy, overflowing compassion that we ourselves have received to become new in order to impart the compassion of heaven to those who are being saved. Family, my encouragement to you is that out of the overflow of being a recipient of the grace of Christ that has come to confront my life in the error of trying to transition into an identity that was a form of godliness that lacked power, that God confronted that in my own life, that he sprayed all of the dirt out of that cracked image of him, and that in that place that has no longer then cropped up to sprout weeds that I have to battle back, that he's invited me into a transformed life with him, that in joining Christ in his death, burial, and resurrection, that I have now received new life in him, empowered by his very spirit to be able to soar with him where he is. That his life then is born from me as a natural expression of his supernatural reality come into me, such that the ordinary of my life is expressed within the world as extraordinary. Jamie, Andrea, Leah, Laith, Hunter, Valentina, Paolo, and Kenny, I'm so thankful for all of you and bless you in Jesus' name for the prophetic voice that you've had in my life to awaken my ears to hear the voice of God in a clearer way, that you introduced me to the life of Christ in such a profound way that I don't believe that I ever would have received outside of having engaged your lives. I so appreciate and admire you all in Jesus. So grateful that I've been able to receive from you, and the little that I've been able to glean from you on the internet. And I bless you in Jesus' name. So, if you subscribe to what I am doing, then hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. I pray blessings on our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I will see you in the next video.